I walked into the hotel lobby in Singapore at 2 in the morning, my company credit card rejected at the front desk, my phone vibrating with a text from my son that read, "Mom, we don't need you in the company anymore. Your corporate card has been canceled. Stay there, the company is ours now." The night manager was staring at me with that particular blend of pity and suspicion reserved for women my age who can't pay their hotel bill. Behind me, 3 colleagues from the textile convention were pretending not to notice. 2 suppliers from Vietnam I'd known for 15 years, and a logistics coordinator from Taiwan who'd flown in specifically to meet with me. The lobby was one of those modern glass and marble affairs in the Marina Bay district, all sharp edges and cold surfaces, the kind of place that made you feel small when things went wrong. I was 58 years old, standing in a foreign country in a wrinkled blazer, holding a phone that had just delivered a message I'd been too blind to see coming. I smiled at the manager, pulled out my personal American Express, the one I'd kept separate from the business, the one I'd maintained for emergencies just like this, though I'd never imagined the emergency would be my own son. Paid for the room. 4 nights, pre-authorized. The manager's expression shifted from suspicion to professional courtesy, but the damage was done. Everyone in that lobby had seen me stumble. Paid for my room with a backup card, like someone who didn't belong. I walked to the elevator like nothing had happened, but everything had happened. The doors closed, I was alone, and that's when my hands started shaking. Before I tell you what I did next, I need you to do something for me. Leave a comment telling me what you would have done in that moment. Standing there, thousands of miles from home, realizing your own child just tried to strand you overseas like you were disposable, like you were nothing. And tell me where you're listening from. I want to know I'm not alone in this. I want to know that somewhere out there, someone understands what it feels like when the person you built everything for tries to erase you. My name is Margaret Chen. I'm 58, and I live in Portland, Oregon, though I suppose that detail matters less now than it did 3 days ago. For 32 years, I built Chen Textile Imports from a single storage unit in southeast Portland into a company with offices in 3 countries and annual revenue that made my accountant smile every quarter. We import high-end textiles from Asia, silk from Thailand, cotton from India, specialty fabrics from Vietnam and Indonesia, and distribute to boutique designers and major retail chains across the United States and Canada. I'm not saying this to brag. I'm saying it because you need to understand what was taken from me wasn't just money. It was 3 decades of 16-hour days, missed birthdays, skipped vacations, a marriage that ended because I chose business over everything else, and a relationship with my son that I sacrificed piece by piece because I was always working, always building, always trying to create something that would last. I didn't do it for glory. I did it so my son would never wonder where his next meal came from, like I did growing up in Sacramento with a single mother who worked 3 jobs and still couldn't make rent some months. I gave him everything: private school, college with no student loans, a job in the company I built with my own hands, and he repaid me by trying to leave me stranded 7,000 miles from home with a canceled credit card and a text message that might as well have said, "You're not needed anymore. Disappear." Life before this was simple, controlled. I woke at 5 every morning in my townhouse in the Pearl District, reviewed shipment schedules over coffee, black, no sugar, same mug I'd used for 20 years, and was in the office by 7. I knew every supplier by name, every shipping route by heart, every employee's birthday and their kids' names and what they ordered for lunch. The company wasn't just mine. It was me. Every decision, every contract, every relationship had my fingerprints on it. My attorney, Gerald Morris, had advised me 3 years ago to restructure, to separate myself from the business legally, to protect my personal assets in case something went wrong. He'd said it gently, the way you tell someone they should write a will or update their insurance. I didn't listen. I trusted my family. That was my first mistake. My second mistake was not seeing the truth about my son until it was almost too late. David Chen came into the business 8 years ago. He was 25 then, fresh from business school at UC Berkeley, full of ideas about modernization and digital transformation and leveraging social media for brand awareness. I was proud. My son, the college graduate, coming home to help build the family legacy. I made him VP of operations, gave him the corner office on the 3rd floor, gave him access to accounts, to suppliers, to vendor relationships I'd spent decades building. Gave him everything except the CEO title, which I told him he'd earn when I retired at 65. He smiled when I said that, hugged me, told me he was grateful. I should have seen it wasn't gratitude in his eyes. It was impatience. His wife, Stephanie Morrison, joined us 2 years later, marketing director. She had a degree from Stanford, spoke 3 languages, English, Mandarin, and French, and interviewed brilliantly. She talked about brand positioning and customer journey mapping and influencer partnerships. She was 31, polished, ambitious. I thought she'd be an asset. I thought David had found a partner who understood business. I didn't see how she watched me, how she took notes during every meeting, writing down not just business items but personal things, how I spoke, what phrases I used, what decisions I questioned, how she slowly, carefully, began suggesting in meetings that I was out of touch with younger clients, how she'd smile when she said it, tilt her head sympathetically so it never felt like an attack. Just concern, just helpful feedback from the younger generation. Margaret, I think our Instagram strategy needs a refresh. The current aesthetic feels very 2010. Margaret, maybe we should consider letting the design team handle the vendor presentations. Your approach is classic, but clients are looking for something more dynamic. Margaret, have you thought about stepping back from day-to-day operations? You've earned a rest. I was 55 when she started saying things like that. Not old, not tired, not ready to rest. But she said it enough that other people started saying it too. The signs started small. 6 months ago, I noticed David and Stephanie having closed-door meetings without me. When I asked, David said they were planning a surprise for my birthday. I believed him because I wanted to believe him, because he was my son, and I'd raised him, to be honest. Then my assistant, Linda Kowalski, who'd been with me for 15 years, who knew the business almost as well as I did, was suddenly reassigned to a different department. David explained it was to streamline operations. He said Linda would be happier working with the procurement team. He said we needed someone younger, someone more tech-savvy, someone who understood the new systems. I got a new assistant, Kira, 23 years old, blonde, smiled a lot, took instructions from Stephanie, not from me. I tried to train her, showed her the filing systems, the vendor contacts, the scheduling preferences I'd developed over 3 decades. She nodded and smiled, and then did everything the way Stephanie told her to do it. Within 2 weeks, I started missing meetings I'd always attended. Kira would apologize. "Oh, I didn't realize you needed to be there," but it kept happening. Vendor calls I'd always handled. Strategy sessions I'd always led. Budget reviews I'd always approved. Suddenly, I was optional. Then the key thing happened. I came to the office one Tuesday morning in March, and my key didn't work. The electronic lock to the main entrance buzzed red instead of green. I tried it 3 times, standing there in the rain with my briefcase and my coffee, feeling stupid and confused. Kira came down and let me in, apologized profusely, said it was a security upgrade, handed me a new key card. I accepted it. Didn't question it. I should have. I should have asked why my key was deactivated before the new one was ready. I should have asked who authorized the security upgrade. I should have asked why I wasn't informed, but I didn't, because I trusted them, because they were family, because I'd built this company for David and I wanted him to take ownership. Meetings started happening without me. I'd walk into the conference room to find David, Stephanie, and our CFO, Marcus Reynolds, huddled over laptops. They'd quickly minimize screens, smile, tell me they were just reviewing quarterly projections or looking at some new vendor proposals. I felt it, the shift, the way conversations stopped when I entered a room, The way Stephanie started speaking over me in meetings, then apologizing sweetly afterwards. The way David stopped asking my opinion before making decisions. The way vendors I'd worked with for 20 years suddenly started calling David instead of me. I told myself I was being paranoid, that I was tired, that maybe it was time to step back, let the younger generation lead. Maybe Stephanie was right. Maybe I was out of touch. Maybe 60 was the new 70 and I was aging out of my own company. I started doubting myself. Started second-guessing decisions I'd been making confidently for decades. Started wondering if everyone could see something I couldn't, that I was slipping, fading, becoming irrelevant. That's what they wanted. They wanted me to doubt myself, to step aside voluntarily, to hand over everything without a fight. Then came the Singapore trip. It was supposed to be routine. The annual Asia-Pacific Textile Convention at the Marina Bay Sands Convention Center. I'd been attending for 18 years. It was where I renewed contracts, met new suppliers, stayed current with industry trends. It was my event, my network, my relationships. This year, David suggested I go alone. "You're better with the old guard suppliers," he said. We were in his office. Stephanie was there too, sitting on the edge of his desk. "They respect you. They've known you forever. Stephanie and I will hold down the fort here. We've got that new product launch and the website redesign." I should have seen it, the way he insisted I go. The way Stephanie smiled when I agreed. The way they both seemed relieved when I booked my flight. I flew out on a Sunday. Singapore Airlines, direct from Portland to Singapore, 13 hours in business class because I'd learned years ago that economy wasn't worth the back pain. I spent Monday and Tuesday at the convention. Everything seemed normal. Better than normal, actually. I closed 2 new contracts, one with a silk supplier in Vietnam, another with a cotton manufacturer in Thailand. I reconnected with suppliers I'd known for years, had dinners, shared drinks, talked business and family and life. I felt good, useful, valuable, like I still had it, like maybe Stephanie and David were wrong and I wasn't washed up after all. Wednesday night. I returned to the hotel after a dinner meeting with a fabric distributor from Jakarta. It was late, almost midnight, but I was energized. The meeting had gone well. We talked about expanding our line of sustainable textiles, about eco-friendly dyes and organic cotton. It was exciting, new, exactly the kind of innovation I'd built the company to pursue. I walked into the lobby feeling lighter than I had in months. That's when I checked my phone and saw the text. "Mom, we don't need you in the company anymore. Your corporate card has been canceled. Stay there. The company is ours now." I read it 3 times. Standing there in the lobby, luggage at my feet, feeling the weight of every eye on me even though nobody was looking yet. I read it and reread it and tried to make it mean something other than what it clearly meant. Then I tried to check into my room for the remaining 2 nights. The card was declined. Not just declined, canceled, invalid. The front desk manager, a polite Singaporean man in his 40s, tried it twice, then looked at me with that expression. The one that says, "I've seen this before." Woman, older. Probably a divorce. Probably cut off. Probably broke. I wasn't broke. I had money. My own money. The personal American Express I'd kept separate from the business specifically because Gerald had told me years ago to always maintain independent finances. But standing there, pulling out that backup card, paying for my own hotel room in a foreign country while my colleagues from the convention watched, I felt broke. I felt small. I felt exactly how David and Stephanie wanted me to feel. Disposable. I went upstairs. Room 2847, corner suite with a view of Marina Bay. I'd stayed in this hotel a dozen times. They knew me here, and now they'd seen me fumble with a rejected credit card. I sat on the edge of the bed. The room was dark except for the city lights through the floor-to-ceiling windows. Singapore glittered below me, oblivious and indifferent. I didn't panic. I didn't call David. I didn't call Stephanie. I did what I've done for 32 years when a problem appeared. I thought, they wanted me gone. They wanted me stranded. They wanted me humiliated, broken, unable to fight back from 7,000 miles away. They'd waited until I was out of the country, out of reach, unable to walk into the office and confront them. They'd planned this, but they made one critical error. They forgot I built this company from nothing. And to build something from nothing, you have to be smarter, meaner, and more patient than anyone else in the room. You have to be willing to work while everyone else sleeps. You have to be willing to see 10 steps ahead. They thought I was old and trusting and soft. They were wrong. I didn't call David. I didn't call Stephanie. I didn't scream or cry or beg. I opened my laptop. The next morning, Thursday, I started investigating. I logged into the company's administrative portal, the one I'd set up in 2009 when we first incorporated, the one David and Stephanie didn't know I still had access to because they'd never bothered to ask about legacy systems. Young people always assume old systems are obsolete. They never think about back doors. I reviewed financial records, transfer logs, email chains, vendor contracts, board minutes, employee files. What I found made my hands shake. Over the past 6 months, David and Stephanie had been systematically restructuring the company. They'd created new contracts with suppliers, cutting me out of negotiations. They'd moved assets into subsidiary accounts I didn't control. They'd opened new bank accounts under the company name with David and Stephanie as sole signatories. They'd prepared new board resolutions that would remove me as CEO and transfer my shares to David due to health concerns and cognitive decline necessitating immediate transition of leadership responsibilities. Cognitive decline. I was 58. I ran 5 miles 3 times a week. I read financial reports before bed. I could recite shipping schedules from memory. They'd scheduled a board meeting for Friday, 2 days away, where they planned to execute the takeover. The agenda was already drafted. Motion to remove Margaret Chen as CEO. Motion to appoint David Chen as CEO. Motion to restructure shares. Motion to revise corporate bylaws. They assumed I'd be stuck in Singapore, unable to attend, unable to fight. They probably assumed I'd run out of money, get desperate, maybe even agree to their terms just to get home. I found emails between Stephanie and Marcus Reynolds, our CFO. The man I'd hired 5 years ago, specifically because he came with impeccable credentials and recommendations. The man I'd trusted with the company's financial future. They were sleeping together. The emails were explicit. But worse than the personal betrayal was the business conspiracy. Marcus had been helping them, restructuring accounts, moving money, preparing fraudulent documentation about my mental fitness. He'd even drafted a letter from a doctor I'd never seen, claiming I'd been evaluated and found to have early onset dementia. I found text messages between David and his college friend, Ryan Metcalf, where David joked about finally getting the old lady out of the way and cashing in on 30 years of Mom's hard work. I sat in that hotel room, 7,000 miles from home, staring at the screen, reading messages from my son that made me feel like I didn't know him at all. He wasn't the boy I'd raised, or maybe he was, and I'd just never seen it. Maybe I'd been so busy building something for him that I never noticed what he was becoming. I didn't cry. I didn't break. I made a plan. First, I called my personal attorney, not the corporate one David and Stephanie had been working with. I called Gerald Morris, the man who'd helped me incorporate the company in 1993. He was 71 now, semi-retired, splitting time between his office in downtown Portland and a cabin on the Oregon coast, but sharp as ever. I called him at 5 a.m. Portland time. He answered on the second ring. "Margaret? What's wrong?" I told him everything. The text, the canceled card, the emails I'd found, the board meeting scheduled for Friday. He listened, didn't interrupt. When I finished, there was a long pause. Then he said 4 words that changed everything. "Margaret, you still own it." He was right. Despite everything David and Stephanie had done, they hadn't yet executed the final transfer. The board meeting was the last step, and I was still the majority shareholder, still the CEO. Still the signatory on every major account. Still the person whose name was on the original incorporation documents. They'd been moving fast, but not fast enough. Gerald and I spent the next 18 hours on the phone and email, working across time zones. He'd work during his day, I'd work during my night. We barely slept. We contacted every board member individually. There were 5 besides me, David, and Stephanie. We sent documentation showing the unauthorized asset transfers. We provided evidence of the affair between Stephanie and Marcus. We showed the emails planning my ouster. We included the fraudulent medical documentation. But more importantly, Gerald did something brilliant. He contacted the company's primary bank, Columbia Bank, where we'd had accounts for 28 years, and, using my authority as CEO and majority shareholder, he froze all corporate accounts pending an internal audit for suspected fraud. He filed an emergency injunction in Multnomah County Circuit Court blocking the Friday board meeting. He notified the Oregon Secretary of State of potential corporate fraud and requested an investigation. And he contacted the building management company for our office space and revoked David's and Stephanie's access to the building, effective immediately. By Friday morning, Portland time, Friday night for me in Singapore, the trap was set. Then I did the hardest thing I've ever done. I waited. I stayed in Singapore. I didn't tell David or Stephanie what I knew. I didn't call them. I didn't email them. I didn't give them any indication that I was anything other than stranded and helpless. When David texted me Thursday asking if I'd thought about their offer, I responded with just 5 words. Thanks for letting me know. When Stephanie emailed me Friday morning with a generous severance package that would give me $50,000 and healthcare for 1 year in exchange for signing over all my shares, I didn't respond at all. I let them think they'd won. Friday morning in Portland, Thursday night for me in Singapore, I watched it all unfold via the security cameras I'd installed in the office 2 years ago. High-definition cameras with audio, cloud-based storage, accessible from anywhere. I'd installed them after we'd had some break-ins in the building. David knew about them. He just assumed I didn't know how to access the feeds remotely. Another mistake. I watched from my hotel room in Singapore, drinking coffee at midnight my time. As David and Stephanie arrived at the office at 8 in the morning, Portland time, they were early, excited. David was wearing a new suit, dark blue, expensive, probably bought specifically for his first day as CEO. Stephanie was in a red dress, the kind you wear when you're celebrating. They were holding Starbucks cups, laughing, walking into my office like they owned it. David sat in my chair, the one I'd bought in 1995 after my first profitable year. The leather was worn in places from 3 decades of use. He leaned back, put his feet on my desk. Stephanie took a photo. At 8:15, Gerald walked in with 2 associates and a federal auditor from the Oregon Division of Financial Regulation. I'll never forget the look on David's face. He was mid-laugh, saying something to Stephanie, and then he saw Gerald, saw the men in suits behind him, saw the badges. His smile died. Gerald spoke first, calm, professional. The way you speak when you're delivering news you know will destroy someone. Mr. Chen, Ms. Morrison, I'm Gerald Morris, representing Margaret Chen and Chen Textile Imports. These gentlemen are here to conduct an emergency audit of company finances. As of 6 a.m. this morning, all corporate accounts have been frozen by order of the majority shareholder and CEO. The board meeting scheduled for today has been canceled by court order. I'm going to need you to step away from that desk. David stood up, slowly. What are you talking about? My mother, your mother, Gerald interrupted, is the CEO and majority shareholder of this company. She has not resigned. She has not transferred her shares. She has not been declared mentally incompetent, and she's very much aware of what you've been doing. I watched Stephanie's face go white. She understood before David did. We need to call her, David said. There's been a misunderstanding. Gerald smiled. Not kindly. There's no misunderstanding. Mrs. Chen is fully informed and has authorized all actions taken today. At 8:30, Marcus arrived. He walked into the office looking relaxed, holding a breakfast sandwich, completely unaware of what was happening. He saw the auditor, saw Gerald, saw David and Stephanie standing there like statues. He turned white. "Mr. Reynolds," the auditor said, "we'll need access to all financial records immediately. We have documentation suggesting unauthorized asset transfers and fraudulent documentation. We'll also need you to remain on premises while we conduct our review." Marcus looked at David. David looked at Stephanie. Nobody spoke. By 9 o'clock, the entire staff knew something was wrong. Employees were gathering in the hallway whispering. Kira, my former assistant, was crying in the break room. By 10, the police had been called, not to arrest anyone yet, but to document the fraud investigation. 2 officers from the Portland Police Bureau's Financial Crimes Unit arrived, took statements, photographed documents. By 11, David was calling me. 12 missed calls in 20 minutes. Then texts. "Mom, please, we can talk about this." It was Stephanie's idea. "I never wanted to hurt you. Please answer." "Mom, I'm your son." I didn't answer. I sat in my hotel room in Singapore, watching the security feeds, feeling something cold and hard where my heart used to be. I flew home on Saturday. Singapore Airlines again, same route in reverse. 13 hours to think, to process, to decide what came next. I didn't sleep. Just watched the clouds and thought about all the years I'd spent building something for a son who tried to destroy me the moment he thought I was weak enough to take down. I landed in Portland on Sunday morning. Went straight to the office. David and Stephanie were there, cleaning out their desks. Security guards Gerald had hired were watching them, making sure they didn't take anything that belonged to the company. David looked up when I walked in. His eyes were red. He'd been crying, or not sleeping, or both. "Mom," he said, "can we talk?" I looked at my son, the boy I'd raised alone after his father left, the young man I'd put through college, the adult I'd trusted with my life's work, and I felt nothing, not anger, not sadness, nothing. "You didn't make a mistake, David," I said quietly. "You made a choice. You chose to betray me. You chose to humiliate me. You chose to leave me stranded in a foreign country because you thought I was too old, too weak, too trusting to fight back." Stephanie started crying. Actual tears. She was good. "We just wanted what was fair. You were never going to retire. You were never going to let go. We had ideas, and you wouldn't listen." I turned to her. "Fair? You wanted fair? I built this company before you were born. I gave you a career. I gave you opportunity. I gave you a salary that let you live in a Pearl District condo and drive a BMW. And you repaid me by sleeping with my CFO and planning corporate fraud." She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. "You don't understand. David deserves nothing," I said. "He earned nothing. He inherited an opportunity and he tried to steal the rest." I turned back to David. "You're not just fired. You're out of the will. You're out of my life. And if you ever use the Chen name in business again, I will sue you into bankruptcy. Do you understand me?" He opened his mouth to speak. I walked past him. Gerald handled the rest. Marcus was terminated immediately and reported to the Oregon Board of Accountancy for ethics violations. Stephanie was escorted from the building with her personal belongings in a cardboard box. David was given 1 hour to remove anything that belonged to him personally, photos, a coffee mug, a jacket, and then his access was revoked permanently. The board met the following Tuesday. Emergency session. I presented everything. The unauthorized transfers, the fraudulent medical documents, the affair, the conspiracy. 3 board members resigned immediately. They'd been friendly with David and Stephanie, had probably known something was happening and chosen to look the other way. I accepted their resignations. The remaining 2 voted unanimously to reverse all unauthorized transfers, dissolve the subsidiary accounts, and restructure the company bylaws to prevent any single person, including me, from making unilateral changes without board oversight. I hired a new CFO within 2 weeks. Jennifer Park, 45, 15 years of experience, impeccable references. I promoted Linda back to executive assistant, brought in an independent auditor to review every transaction from the past 2 years, found $17,000 that had been moved into personal accounts, filed criminal complaints. The company survived. Stronger, actually. Vendors respected the transparency. Employees appreciated the accountability. We lost a few clients initially, people who'd been loyal to David, but we gained more. Revenue increased by 18% in the following quarter. But I changed. I'm still CEO. I still work 16-hour days. I still arrive at 5 in the morning and leave after dark. But now I understand something I didn't before. Trust isn't something you give because someone is family. Trust is something you earn through years of consistent behavior and honest action. And when it's broken, truly broken, it's gone. You can't fix it. You can't rebuild it. You can only acknowledge it's gone and move forward without it. I haven't spoken to David since that day in the office. He tried for a while. Emails, letters. He even showed up at my house once, 3 months later, stood on my porch in the rain. I watched him from the window, didn't open the door. He eventually stopped trying. Stephanie divorced him 6 months later. Turns out she was also sleeping with Ryan, David's college friend, the one he'd joked with about getting rid of me. She moved to Seattle. Last I heard, she was working for a small marketing firm, making a third of what I'd paid her. Marcus lost his CPA license after the Oregon board investigation. The fraudulent medical documents were the final nail. Last I heard, he was selling insurance in Beaverton, barely making enough to cover his mortgage. David moved to Sacramento, where I grew up, ironically, and took a job as a regional manager for a logistics company. Not the worst outcome for him, not the best either, just mediocre, average. Exactly what he'd tried to avoid by stealing from me. Me? I'm still here, still running the company I built, still proving that age doesn't mean obsolescence, that experience isn't weakness, that building something over decades means understanding every corner of it in ways a young person with an MBA never will. But I sleep lighter now. I installed additional cameras. I changed all the passwords. I review every financial document personally. I watch closer. I trust less. I go to the office every day and I sit in my chair, the same one David sat in that Friday morning, and I run my company. And every time I sign a contract or approve a transfer or make a decision, I remember what it felt like standing in that hotel lobby in Singapore, watching my credit card get declined while my son tried to erase me. I'll never forget the look on David's face when he realized that stranding me overseas wasn't the end of my story. It was the beginning of his. The criminal case is still ongoing. The district attorney is pursuing fraud charges against Marcus and Stephanie. David was given immunity in exchange for testimony. Gerald negotiated that, said it wasn't worth destroying him completely. I disagreed, but I let Gerald handle it. That's what I pay him for. The civil case settled. Marcus and Stephanie paid restitution. David paid nothing because he had nothing. I'd already cut him out of everything. The settlement covered the stolen funds plus legal fees. Not enough to make me whole emotionally, but enough to send a message. I've been asked, multiple times, if I regret how I handled it. If I regret being so harsh with David. If I regret cutting him out completely. I don't. What I regret is not seeing it sooner. Not recognizing the signs when Stephanie first started undermining me. Not questioning why David was so eager for me to go to Singapore alone. Not protecting myself better. But cutting him out? No regret at all. Because here's what I know now. When someone shows you who they are, believe them. When someone tries to destroy you, don't give them a second chance to finish the job. When someone betrays you that completely, that calculatedly, that cruelly, you don't owe them forgiveness. You don't owe them understanding. You don't owe them anything. You owe yourself protection. You owe yourself dignity. you owe yourself the self-respect to walk away and never look back. I'm 60 now, 2 years past the coup attempt. The company is thriving. I've taken on 2 new board members, both women over 50, with their own successful businesses. I've updated the bylaws. I've created succession plans that don't involve family. I've made sure that when I do retire, it'll be on my terms, to someone I trust, with protections in place. And I've started speaking publicly about what happened. Not for sympathy, not for revenge, but because I know I'm not the only older woman who's been pushed out of her own company by family members who decided she was obsolete. I speak at business conferences. I talk to women's groups. I share my story with other entrepreneurs who are struggling with family succession. And the response has been overwhelming. Hundreds of women and men who've experienced similar betrayals, who've been pushed out of companies they built, who've been told they're too old, too out of touch, too whatever, who've been made to feel like they should step aside gracefully and let the younger generation take over. I tell them, don't step aside if you're not ready. Don't let anyone make you feel obsolete when you're still sharp and capable. Don't trust anyone, not even family, with unlimited access to what you've built. Document everything. Keep your own attorney. Maintain your own accounts. Review every financial statement. Question every change. Trust your instincts. And if you're feeling pressure from family about your business, your home, your decisions, listen to your gut. If something feels wrong, investigate. If someone is pushing you to sign something, wait. If you're being isolated or undermined, fight back. You built it. You own it. You don't owe it to anyone. I learned that lesson at 58, standing in a hotel lobby in Singapore, holding a rejected credit card and a text message that should have destroyed me. Instead, it reminded me who I am. I'm Margaret Chen. I built an empire from a storage unit in Southeast Portland. I survived poverty, divorce, and 3 decades of 16-hour days. I learned to negotiate with suppliers who didn't want to work with a woman, to compete with companies 10 times my size, to build something from nothing. And no one, not my son, not his wife, not a corrupt CFO, not anyone, was going to take that from me, not without a fight they weren't prepared for. Not without learning that underestimating a woman because of her age is the kind of mistake you only make once. Not without discovering that quiet doesn't mean weak, and patience doesn't mean surrender. I won. They lost. And I'm still here. Leave a comment if this resonated with you. Tell me your story. Tell me where you're from. Tell me if you've ever been underestimated because of your age, or betrayed by someone you trusted, or pushed aside when you still had more to give. Because we're not alone in this. We're not done yet. And we're not going anywhere. We built this, and we're keeping it.